This is Notre from the NR Sports Show. This is episode 961. Happy Friday. I'm joined by a really special guest. His name is Rob Carpenter. He's a former Syracuse NFL wide receiver. He played for the Bengals, New England Patriots, New York Jets, and Philadelphia Eagles. What a great career, and really looking forward to this interview. And Rob, I just want to say thank you for joining the show. And we are live on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Anchor, and please, everyone, tune in. This will be a good one. So first of all, Rob, how are you and your family doing today?
Everybody's good here, man. Still staying safe. Can't complain too much right now.
Yeah. So I want to start off with your childhood growing up. Obviously, you went to Notre Dame, Syracuse, and college. But for you, what was it like growing up in New York? And when did you get interested in the game of football? And who do you say your biggest role model was?
Well, as far as organized ball went, I started playing when I was in the fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
I was, of course, playing around my neighborhood with friends and people from around my neighborhood before that. But, my dad was the one who actually got me into the sport. He was a real good football player when he was in high school. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to go to college. Yes, he had to go into the service, but, that was my biggest influence as far as getting into the game. And basically him and myself and my brother, my sisters, we would sit around on Sundays, man, and watch all the NFL games. I come from a big, sports watching family. Sports has been pretty much part of my life, man. My entire livelihood.
So in high school, when you were growing up as a football player, and did you learn any other positions before playing wide receiver?
Actually, when I was in high school, I didn't play wide receiver. I was a quarterback when I was coming through. I played quarterback and I played defensive back. For a while, for a couple of years, I was one of the leading defensive backs in the state of New York. Going through high school. So, being recruited, for the most part, every school that came to recruited me as a defensive back, if you're a safety or corner. I didn't change to playing wide receiver until I was actually in college. Okay. At Notre Dame. Because even then, with Notre Dame recruiting me, they recruited me to play quarterback. The change wasn't hard for me. It basically was just like the whole time playing football with your friends out in the street. Basically you're either gonna be throwing it or you're gonna be catching it. So, it was one of those things. So it was pretty easy for me to adjust to play the wide receiver position when I got to college. So, I just took it from there. Just let my natural ability take over. Of course, there was a lot of learning to do at the position at the higher level you go. The little nuances of playing, but as far as route running and just catching the ball, that was pretty natural for me.
Wow. Yeah, so to tell our fans about your quarterback days and what made you switch from defensive back to receiver?
Well, it wasn't really, the fact that when I was being recruited, I wanted to play quarterback in college. That was my goal. I didn't really want to switch positions. Like I said, most of the schools that were recruiting me to play defensive back. That just wasn't my goal. It wasn't my thing to do. Don't get me wrong. I did like playing the position, especially when I was in high school. You could ask any of my teammates that played with me when in high school. I loved playing defensive back, whether it was safety or corner. The coach I had in high school gave me the leeway to pick, week to week, which one I wanted to go to. Watching the way the game's played, back when I was growing, it was played a little different with defensive backs. They got a little, they could be a little more physical back then. So that's actually the way that I played when I was coming up, especially when I was playing corner. That was basically the only way I knew how to play. So, it's weird watching the game, today's game, where you see how playing corner is way different than how, I was taught to play the game. And even talking to a lot of the guys that used to play back when I was playing and coming through, they all say the same thing. We've seen it. We've seen the change of the position. It's just so much different now. But again, when I changed over to receiver, and I knew when I was actually going to transfer from Notre Dame to Syracuse that wide receiver was going to be my best position to play, and then I have a shot at the NFL. So I just stuck with it and got to learn from some of the better players that were around, especially one of my roommates, Rob Moore, who was an NFL player.
Yeah.
And also, my mentor, Art Monk. I would speak to him during the summertime, and just kind of pick his brain a little bit, from everything that he went through from his career from Syracuse all through his Hall of Fame NFL career.
Wow. Yeah. So what advantages do you get by playing both defensive back and receiver?
Well, there is an advantage to it, and I believe this wholeheartedly. That once you play the position of defensive back and also play receiver or vice versa,
Yeah.
you kind of get the nuances of what's going on the field and can read things a lot better. So if I was playing defensive back and was going against a good receiver, from playing the position, it's kind of easy for me to read routes, and see which routes might be coming, my way. Whether it's from the split that was taken from the wide receiver or just the nuance of the route combination that might be coming my way from the lineup on the offensive side of the ball, and vice versa. You kind of get how to actually make a defensive back change direction. When you're playing wide receiver, you get to know how to kind of throw a little feints in there like you would have as a boxer throwing feints.
Yeah.
And that on the other side of the ball, they kind of know what might be coming, but you do also learn, like I said, the little nuances of playing the game to just get a defensive back off his stride just a little bit, and get yourself open.
Yeah. So now tell our fans about your college recruitment process and how many offers did you get coming in, and obviously you chose Notre Dame and eventually transferred to Syracuse, but tell about your Notre Dame experience and what made you choose Notre Dame at first.
Well, my dad was a little bit of a Notre Dame fan, and so was my grandfather. And when they actually basically jumped into the fray of recruiting me, they went basically straight to the top of the heap because, for one thing, Lou Holtz was a new coach at Notre Dame at the time. It was basically going to be his first big recruiting class. I did have quite a few offers. Honestly, I don't even remember exactly how many, but there was quite a few. And I made my choice to narrow it down quite early, so I wouldn't have to be dealing with the phone calls and the interviews and everything. Because also at the same time, I was big into basketball. So playing basketball in the high school level, from the time I was a sophomore, and having to travel during the summertime, playing AAU basketball, that took away a little bit of the recruiting process during the summertime. But at the same time, I didn't really want to drag things out a long time. I made my choice in my junior year to play football rather than play basketball.
Right.
So once I decided that was going to be on the line, don't get me wrong, I still wanted to play basketball in my free time, which I was calling my free time outside of football. Yeah. So I still continued to play AAU basketball. That still kept me in shape. And basically I narrowed it down to 5 schools kind of early on that I thought I would probably have the best chance of playing at. It was Notre Dame was one of them, Iowa, University of Virginia, Penn State. Syracuse came in a little late because they kind of thought that I was going to be, going to Notre Dame at first. But for the fact that I actually had, I pretty much was up on everything Syracuse at the time. I watched every game that they played, before the NFL games on Sundays. Where I grew up, Syracuse was on every Sunday morning. So I got, even if I didn't see the game on Saturday, I got to rewatch the game on Sunday. So I knew pretty much all about the program there. But once I narrowed it down, I just took those schools and ran with it and just tried to make the best decision I could. Went on my recruiting visits and took a couple of extra visits to a couple of different schools. More than one, not the official recruiting visit. I went on some unofficial visits to a couple of schools that I was interested in going to. So once it got to the signing period, I kind of narrowed it down to just either Notre Dame, Iowa, or University of Virginia, and just went from there.
Wow. Yeah, so this is a 2-part question. So what was it like playing for Notre Dame? Obviously, great college program, and you got to play underneath Coach Lou Holtz. What a great guy, and obviously still working the college game, but college game day and all. So what was it like at Notre Dame and the atmosphere and the fans? And And also the next part to this, what made you transfer to Syracuse?
Well, Notre Dame is a great school. Everybody knows that. It's kind of like the upper echelon of college programs, especially was at that time. If you say Notre Dame, everybody knows Notre Dame around the world. And the program had been in a little lull for a short period of time. And when Lou Holtz took over as the head coach, I pretty much myself and every other recruit that was destined to go there knew that the program was going to change, and knew that they would be vying for a national title, so sooner rather than later. And that was part of what was my goal as well, to be at a program that was a top-notch program, and being playing at the same time. And Notre Dame basically was going to be on TV every week, so even though I was going to be away from my family in the New York area, they'd be able to watch the games if they weren't there in person. And it pretty much went as I thought it would. My freshman year, I basically worked my way into the lineup early on, during camp. Unfortunately, a shoulder injury kind of slowed me down a bit, and I was, put down from the area where I had worked myself up. I'd worked myself into the rotation early on. We had Tim Brown, who was the Heisman Trophy winner there, my freshman year. So, of course, he was going to be one of the guys. And then there was another senior that was there. And after that, it was pretty much a toss-up, as Lou Holtz said. The backups who played in camp and played well in camp would be the guys that I would be playing as backups. And I had a shot there, but like I said, I hurt my shoulder just before the first game, and Lou Holtz decided he wanted to actually just sit me down for the year. I was a little upset about it. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty upset about it at that time. And I actually didn't even want to wait to transfer at that time. I wanted to transfer right then and there. Oh, wow. Of course, if the rules were the same as they were nowadays, I'd have been gone. To be honest with you, because I knew even though I did have a separated shoulder, I still played, I still practiced, I still did everything. It wasn't like I was just sitting on the sidelines. Once I decided that transferring was going to be, in my future, I stayed there for the entire year as my freshman year. My dad kind of talked me into staying, just to see how things worked out. But it was basically in the back of my mind the entire time I was there my freshman year. And when I, got out of school in May, came back home, I still had my mind made up that I wanted to transfer. And I knew where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to go to Syracuse. I knew I wanted to be back closer to home. I knew the school itself. There was a lot of guys that were going to school there that I knew already. Some guys I played high school ball against, whether on the football field or the basketball court. Regular students that I knew in person that were going to school there. So it was basically going to be just like a homecoming to me to go there, be on the stage there. I knew I was going to have to sit out for a year, just be a student and wait my turn. But, I was willing to be patient and do that, because I knew in the end it would benefit.
Well, yeah. So speaking of Tim Brown, what was it like playing with Tim Brown in college? And obviously he went to have a great Hall of Fame career in the NFL with the Raiders. And for you, what was it like being his teammate in college, and what did you learn with him?
It was a great experience to see everything that Tim went through. The Heisman hype in the preseason. Yeah. The way he handled all of the hype, and the way he handled himself on and off the field for the entire year. So I got to learn early about what it is, being at a top level school, and being around one of the top players in the country. And especially when it worked out that he actually won the Heisman. Yeah. To be sitting in the same wide receiver room with the guy that actually, is there winning that trophy. It's something that you can learn from. Of course I did. And I took that with me when I left, Notre Dame into Syracuse, had all of that, experience with me when I got there. Not saying that I needed a whole lot more, when I got to Syracuse, because there was some good players that were there as well. Like I said, my old roommate, road dog, Rob Moore, he was one of the better receivers, in the country. When we were in school, he ended up being an All-Pro, when we were in the NFL. So, I got to learn a lot from some guys that were, some really good players.
You still keep in touch with Tim Brown?
I haven't seen Timmy in a while. I haven't spoken to him in a while. When I first got out of the league, I did, see him a lot and spoke to him, here and there. There's a lot of guys, the NFL is basically a brotherhood, like everybody knows. When you get a chance to speak to guys that you haven't seen in a while, you take that opportunity and you do. But you also know that, guys are spread out all over the country and, and still, have their own lives to live. But, most of the guys that I actually, played with at some time or other, I speak to.
Hey, Fred Barnett's in Bermuda, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to ask you about your Syracuse career. So what was that like coming back home, close to home, and that's when your family members can come to the games and watch you play. So what was it like for you, and just having your family there too, watching the games?
That was what I was looking for,
Yeah.
honestly. Going from Long Island up to Syracuse, that was something that I had in my head where I knew that, at any point in time, if my family wanted to come up and they wanted to come to a game, they could just jump on the road and take that quick 4 or 5 hour ride, and they would be there. And for the most part, my family did. Where if the game wasn't on TV, they would be in the stadium. So, that was something that I really was looking forward to. I wanted to share that experience with my family, so they got to experience, the game days and things that I was going through. Not just being, sitting at home watching it on TV. You don't get the full experience of it if you're just sitting watching it, and talking to your family on the phone or whatever. If they're there and they can see it, and they see the hoopla of everything that's going on in the college experience, and how, being in a stadium like, the Dome, everybody knows the Carrier Dome, or it wasn't that the Carrier Dome at that time. Anywhere you go around football, everybody knows what it was like. And you just say the Syracuse Carrier Dome, and everybody knows what it was around this world. So, excuse me, it was just, one of those things I wanted to. It was on my mind to have my family there to experience it right along with me. I knew, like I said, I had to be patient for that first year I was there. But after that, once I got on the field, I knew the rest would take care of itself.
Can you tell our fans about some of your best moments or best games in your college career?
I'd say one of my best was early on, when my first year playing, second game of the season. Actually, my first catch. I say my first catch was something that I knew. I'm like, all right, I'm on this level. I'm finally here. But that first season that I had there, was one of those things where I look back on it and like I learned a lot, but at the same time knew that I was good enough to be on the level of playing, top tier Division I college football. There was a couple of plays on one of the plays against Army early on. Past I was on the sideline. I had to actually jump over a guy to make a catch, turn around backwards and jump over a guy to make a catch. That also let me know I was there. And the first touchdown that I threw in college went to my old roommate Rob Moore. Playing against Pitt. That was a national television game at University of Pittsburgh. It was first play of the game, and it just brought me back to my old high school, college quarterback days. And we had worked on that throughout the summer, and for the fact that Syracuse knew I played high school quarterback, they knew about the talent that I had to throw the ball as well. So that play was input early on, when I was deemed a starter. So we finally brought it out on that national television game, first play of the game, and I threw that. I believe it was a little more than 60-yard touchdown pass to Rob Moore. My first year there was quite a few games that actually stand out to me. The game I had against University of Louisville in Japan. I only had 3 catches in that game, but those 3 catches, 2 of those catches went for more than 60 yards for touchdown. So, basically the last one, I believe, was 70 something yards, and it was a touchdown that basically just won the game for us. So, that first year there was a lot of things that went on, a lot of plays that I made there. That was a fun year for me. Just stepping on the scene, playing alongside Rob Moore was a lot of fun, and also there was a lot of Long Island connection on that team, so we had a lot of fun because everybody knew everybody on that team. So everybody from Long Island, we all had friendships already. So it was a lot of fun playing with those guys.
Yeah, Rob Moore is a legend for sure.
He is, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what was it like playing? The Japan experience must be fun. And what was it like for you guys, and just playing in Japan?
That was a very, very, very unique experience. You know, every college player, you know, at that time, the bowl games were very big,
Yeah.
and every college player would know they wanted to have a season on a team that played well enough to make it to a bowl game.
Hmm.
And a New Year's Day bowl game was the big ones, and everybody knows it. You know, those top bowl games on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve were the big games that you wanted to play in. But when this Japan Bowl, as they called it, you know, came around, it was just a unique experience that the NCAA was doing to, you know, try to get the college football game recognized around the world. And I believe the year before that we were there, it was Oklahoma State that played in the game, because I do, you know, remember Barry Sanders actually, you know, having a hell of a game
Yeah.
that he played over there. So it was knowing that we were taking the field the following year, playing in that same game, and it was basically treated just like a bowl game, but basically it was also our last regular season game, you know. So, you know, traveling over to Japan, great experience, man. We got to, you know, enjoy some of the culture that was over there, along with, you know, having to deal with everything else that we had to deal with as far as getting ready to actually play the game itself. There was a very unique experience that happened to me the following year, which was a little, you know, weird for myself. You know, the following year, I actually got the MVP of the game in Japan. And the following year, we were the team struggled a little bit. We had a freshman quarterback, Marvin Graves. So we ended up playing in Hawaii in the Aloha Bowl.
Hmm.
And unique experience. I have myself, a couple of my teammates, I believe Shelby Hill, Kadri Ismail. We're walking down the street, and a couple of guys just walked up to me and just, you know, pointed me out, called my name, and told me that I just played the year before in that Japan Bowl. You know, so to be in Hawaii and have guys, you know, point you out on the street just randomly, you know, for something that you did over in Japan, you know, that was a crazy, unique experience for me, and, you know, something that I won't ever forget.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, what a great story there. Obviously now you're the one of the among all-time leaders in Syracuse University history and receptions, and only playing 2 years there. So what does that mean to you?
It means I put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's basically what it does, you know, for me. And everybody says, you know, and would tell me, you know, years after I left that, you know, if I had played my final year there, I probably would have been in the record books that nobody would have ever touched. But, you know, for me to leave, especially at the time that I left with a year to go, a year of eligibility to play. And when I left, I was already in the top five.
Yeah.
You know, it basically just says to me that, you know, I put in the work. The coaches trusted me, quarterbacks trusted me. You know, I knew I had the talent to be out there, and, you know, the game has changed quite a bit. We actually didn't even really throw the ball a lot back then, which also, you know, puts me up there and to knowing that, you know, I had a pretty big impact on the game itself. You know, my couple of years there.
Yeah, so now tell our fans about your draft experience. You got drafted in 1991, round 4, pick 109 by the Cincinnati Bengals. And what was that like for you, waiting for your name to be called, waiting with your family, and once you got your name called, you realizing that you made your dream?
That was also, you know, something that I'll never forget. You know, going into the draft, I knew that year there were a lot of receivers that were coming out that year. And I didn't have the greatest off season as far as workouts go. You know, and coming off that year, the very beginning of the season, I had injured my ankle. Had a high ankle sprain, but I continued to play. But, you know, that from what I understand, that kind of, you know, hindered the process of me, you know, in the draft rooms for a lot of teams, because they didn't really know exactly how my ankle had turned out, even though I played the entire season. Didn't have any issues. My only thing was that, you know, through the draft process, again, it was a little different back then. And I didn't have the full off season as far as workouts go, to get prepared for the combine. me attending the combine literally was a last minute decision. I got the offer to go to the combine 2 days before the combine actually was to start.
Wow.
Because I had tossed my name into the eligibility for the draft, which was that first year that underclassmen could actually go in. And initially it was just for me to go to the combine, take my physical, and then, have the interview process and then leave to come back and get ready for, my workouts with the other teams. But I went through some of the workouts there. And once everything was all over with, my agent and everybody else just basically told me, it's a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen. It could be a team that picked you in the second round. It could be a team that picked you in third, fourth, whatever it might be. So I was basically patient for the whole day. I just didn't know where I was going to go.
Yeah.
There were a couple of teams that made, little inclinations with late phone calls, leading up to the draft that, thought, I might be going to a couple of these different teams. I won't say the names, but, but just didn't turn out that way. And, when I got the phone call from Cincinnati, it was like, okay, I'm here. Now I got to put in the work to stay here. That was my whole thing. I wanted to play at least 6 years. My goal was to play 10. But I definitely wanted to play above the average, NFL career. I wanted to actually double that. So, like I said, once I got that phone call and, the breath of fresh air was there. All right, I know where I'm going. I know where I'm at. Now it's time to actually put in the work and get ready to go. And that's basically what I did. It was a little weird being in Cincinnati for training camp.
Sure.
I didn't know how it was going to pan out. Being there, and I knew I had the talent to make the team for sure.
Yeah.
It was just a weird thing that went on. The practice squad thing was just happening at the same time, which they came to me a little late in the preseason saying that they might want to hide me on the practice squad so another team wouldn't be able to get me, which was a little weird in, telling me that at the time. I actually was playing pretty well in the preseason, but they didn't get a chance to keep me. I was, shipped right off to New England, before the preseason was over. So,
Wow.
I didn't really want to be in New England at that time. To be totally honest with you, even though I was going back to my old coaching staff from Syracuse, they had left at the same time I did. So I was back with my old college coach, Dick McPherson, my old receivers coach, Ivan Fears, the tight ends coach that was there with New England was with me in Syracuse. So, I had coaches that were around me that I was familiar with. It's just that, going to the NFL level at the same time, we were all learning at the same time. So I really didn't want that. I wanted to be on a team where, there was veteran leadership, which the Patriots had, but at the same time, I wanted to be around a coaching staff that actually was there and knew about the NFL game, for a while. That was there in Cincinnati for sure, because Sam White was there. But, I would have preferred to be around a team that had NFL coaching, NFL coaches that were a part of the NFL for a while. So I really got to learn, the nuances of the game and actually how to be a pro. That really didn't occur to me until my second year when I got to the Jets.
Yeah, I feel like this year that's when your career started to take off, when you went to the Jets, and obviously you got to play with your teammate Rob Moore there in New York. So for you, how relieved were you when you had the chance, when there was a chance that you were coming back home to play for the Jets and having your former teammate that you're familiar with? So what was that like for you?
Well, it was funny in a way. When I was leaving New England through free agency, I was part of a bunch of firsts that came along. I was part of that first group that was, as part of Plan B free agency in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And when my name was out there, there were, I believe, 7 or 8 teams that were, looking forward to me, but I narrowed it down. Again, it was almost like the college recruiting process. I narrowed it down real quick. I didn't want to be traveling all over the country. I wanted to actually be working out and getting ready. So once I knew the Jets were there, that was actually my first priority, to be honest with you. I wanted to go back home. I wanted to play for the Jets. Literally, I would be literally playing right at home or practicing right at home. Syracuse University is 10 minutes away from where I grew up. Mm-hmm. My grandmother and my sister lived right there, less than 5 minutes away from Hofstra University. So, that literally was home for me. And like you said, my old, road dog Rob Moore was there. And I spoke to him early on,
Mhm.
in free agency. And, he went in and spoke about me to Bruce Coslett,
Yeah.
and to the GM and to the other coaches. So, I had him on my side and had him, behind me the whole way. So, when I was out on my free agency visits, the Jets had already been in my mind to say that, I pretty much that's where I want to go.
Mhm.
So I did put that bug in my ear as far as, to my agent saying, I'm not telling other teams that I'm not going to come, but, we know firsthand right here and there that I want to play for the Jets.
Mhm.
And that's basically how it worked out. The offers were there. Some of them were similar, but when the Jets actually showed more interest than any other team, it just made it real easy for me. And like I said, like you said, the familiarity that was there with Rob and a few other players that were already there that I knew. Paul Fraze, a former teammate of mine at from Syracuse. There were a few guys that were already on the team, again, that I knew already, and was familiar with. So it was a pretty easy transition for me to make it to the Jets.
Yeah. So what is it like playing for New York? Obviously, they have a great fan base, and also you playing underneath Coach Bruce Coslett. He's a great coach, and obviously Rob Moore, and you got a lot of great players there. Kyle Clifton, another great player I really like from the Jets. But for
Yep.
you, what was it like experience like for 2 years there in the Jets?
Well, for me, the transition for me was pretty easy, but for at the same time, I learned quite a bit from guys like Al Toon, Chris Burkett, and the receivers coach that I had was probably the biggest influence on me in my NFL career was Chip Myers. The receivers coach that I had there. He was a former player. You can't ask for anything more than to have a former player who played 10 years in the league at the position that he's coaching you. So, for him and for me to be under his wing, because I picked his brain a lot. I would just sit in his office, after practice, at times when everybody was gone, and just sit down and we just talk about the game, about life, and about a lot of other things. And honestly, when Chip left, it felt kind of weird. That was my third year in New York when Chip had left and went to Minnesota. And the team was drastically different than when I first got there. And we all know, the NFL is a business. So, there's going to be turnover. There's going to be, guys coming and going, whether it's the coaches, players, or what have you. It just felt a little weird being there when Chip, not having him as my receivers coach being there. Even though the lessons I took from him, to stay in the league for as long as I did, it was just unfortunate that he wasn't there for the last year that I was in.
Yeah. So now after your Jets career, you go to the Philadelphia Eagles, and you got to play with some great players there. Obviously, I had your former teammate Fred Barnett on the show. Where you played with Randall Cunningham, Rodney Peete, Rory Waters, Brad Brooks, Fred McRae. I can go down the list. And what was it like for you going from the Jets, where you had great talent, and going to the Eagles with great talent also?
Well, that was a fun year. I'll be honest with you. The season didn't start off great, and I picked me talking about Chip Myers. I picked Philadelphia over Minnesota, where Chip Myers was.
Wow.
I spoke to Chip quite a bit during that little process that I had and deciding where I wanted to go. And it was down to Minnesota and Philadelphia. And the reason why Philadelphia was there was because Ray Rhodes was the new head coach.
Yeah.
I sat in and had a conversation with him. And with him telling me basically, he's like, with him being a new head coach and being a black head coach, he had to win games in order to keep his job. That was, first and foremost. So for him, he was going to play the best players that were there. He didn't care about, guys and big contracts and stuff like that. He just wanted to put the best guys that were on the field to help him win games. So I knew that when I was going into training camp, that I was going to have a really good shot at not only making the team, but playing quite a bit. As long as Ray, kept to his word of what he was doing. And he did basically throughout all of camp, throughout the whole season. he didn't shy away from playing the guys that actually were producing on both sides of the ball. He really didn't care about the amount of money that a guy was making. If you were actually out on the field making plays and doing what you were supposed to do, he played you. That was just his motto. And that's how we won games. Like I said, we started off slow. I believe we started out 0-2 on the season. And it slowly picked up and guys started buying into the whole program. And we started piling on the wins. And that's what made, of course, winning makes everything fun. But also, when you're actually around a lot of guys that actually like playing the game and have fun playing the game, that makes it even better. And for me, switching conferences was a little different as well.
Yeah.
At that time, the NFC was the big dog in the NFL. San Francisco and Dallas were ruling the Super Bowls at that time.
Yeah.
And I did notice the difference even when I was in New York. Those few years playing, when you scouted other teams or you watched film on teams from the NFC, you saw the difference in the game. Basically, the NFC was a powerhouse game. Don't get me wrong, the ball was thrown around a lot, with teams in the NFC, but the teams from the NFC basically just they put on the field as far as the defense goes. They put on the field what was there. They didn't try to hide anything.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of disguising what was out there on the field. They played their defense and they played it well. And they just said, this is what we do. You try to beat us. So that made it hard for a lot of offensive coordinators to go out and try to beat the big time teams in the NFC at that time because they were so good at what they did. Teams like Tampa, when Tony Dungy came along, when you see Tony playing what they call the Tampa 2,
yeah,
that's what they did. They didn't play, they didn't play games. They just lined up and said, "This is what we do, and we're going to beat you doing what we do." And that's how the game was played in the NFC, which was a big difference from the AFC. There was a lot of teams that played a lot of junk defenses in the AFC, a lot of switching, a lot of disguising. Took a little more film study, but once you saw it, you got used to it. You pretty much knew how to attack it. But again, when you see something that's on the field and you know it's there, and you still just have to try to go defeat it, and you can't, that just lets you know that the power of the other team that's out there in the field.
Yeah, sorry to say this, but I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, so
it's all good, man.
Yeah, so obviously you had some amazing moments with the Eagles, but I want to before we get to that, I want to ask you about having quarterbacks with Randall Cunningham and Rodney Peete. And Fred Barnett told us this the other day that Randall Cunningham made it easy for him. So what was it like for you catching balls from him and Rodney Peete?
Actually, Randall probably had the best arm talent of any quarterback I played with. He did make it easy for you to catch the ball. He put the ball in places where it was easy for you to catch it. And basically Rodney did as well. It was a unique experience for me, being in Philadelphia when, you start the season with Randall and me being who I am, I playing quarterback through my high school career, looking at what Randall was doing in the NFL, and to be able to get to the league and actually, be a receiver for him at that time was a great experience for me. But at the same time, I saw Rodney and saw what he was doing early in his career when he was in Detroit, and knew that Rodney was a good quarterback as well. So I had a unique experience to be on a team where there was two good quarterbacks on the team at the same time. You don't find that a whole lot around the NFL. But Fred was right, man. I used to tell people this all the time that Randall's arm talent was incredible, man. He didn't look like he had the strongest arm. But when he threw the ball, you knew that he had a lot of arm talent and he had a lot of arm strength. He could throw the ball 70 yards with ease. He could put the ball in tight spaces if he needed to with ease. And I think that took off for him after he left Philadelphia and he was in Minnesota. So pretty much everybody saw what he really could do as a quarterback when he went to Minnesota. We had Chris Carter and Randy Moss there. So, he put up, MVP numbers there, in a short period of time. And everybody saw that he was still one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. But he did make it easy for receivers to play the position.
Yeah, so take us back to one of your moments in the 1995 wildcard game against the Detroit Lions. you called a Hail Mary pass. Take us back to that moment.
It was it was a pretty funny moment because we were all in the huddle. Myself, Fred, Calvin Williams we were in the huddle, and Rodney just said, "Look, Carl, I'm just gonna throw it up. Just go get it." And I said, "If I can reach it, I'll try to grab it." And Fred basically said, "I'm going to be on the backside." Okay, cool. And as we got down the field, I remember hearing Fred, in my ear, as we got down the field and as the ball was coming. I was tracking the ball, but I remember hearing Fred, for whatever reason, saying, "Carp, you got it." And I just did what I normally would normally do. I tracked the ball pretty well as a receiver. And the crazy thing is that none of the Detroit Lions DBs actually act like they knew where the ball was. There was only one guy that actually had to go up there to fight the ball for. I don't even remember who it was, to be honest with you. I just remember going up, one pair of arms actually trying to go up in between my arms to actually knock the ball out. And that's all I had to deal with. So that was probably one of my easiest catches to make that entire season, and just happened to be a Hail Mary right at halftime for a playoff game.
And in the same playoffs, obviously you played the Dallas Cowboys and obviously lost. And but take us to that game, because what did you guys learn from that game? Even though you lost the Super Bowl champion Cowboys, but what did you learn from that particular game as a team?
Well, we knew that we actually we're going to have to play, pretty much a perfect game. We knew that going into the game.
Yeah.
Because with the Cowboys being who they were at the time, and playing at home, the thing was we had just played them a few weeks before and beat them in Philadelphia. And we knew we could be on the same field with them, but we knew we were going to have to pretty much play a perfect game. Just the ball just didn't bounce right for us that day. I know one of the passes I caught, I actually got knocked out of bounds at the 1 yard line by Dion. Should have been a touchdown. We scored on the next play, but still plays like that should take advantage of. But I also got hurt in that game at the same time. I hurt my shoulder, my neck. So I didn't finish the game full speed like I started the game. But that's one of those games you do learn from, man. That when you get into that spot, and in the playoffs, you have to be on point for the whole game. One little mistake in that game could turn the whole game around, especially when you're on the road. And we see it time and time again. But the teams that can actually go on the road and actually limit the mistakes that they make, and play true to their game, they have a chance. So that was a learning experience for me right then and there.
Yeah. So you got to play with some great receivers in college and the beginning of your career, and you got the luxury of playing with Fred Barnett, Calvin Williams, and you were third in receptions behind those two. So what was it like, the Eagles having three great receivers on one team?
Honestly, that was fun for me, man. Fred was the guy that was there, and everybody knew. And Calvin was his own self. And everybody knew about Calvin as well. Being, the trek that he had to make, to actually be in the league and play at the level that he was playing at. So he had put in the work, and again, when you're in the league at that time, everybody knows, pretty much everybody else on the other team. So what guys have gone through. And when I got there, for that whole season, I wasn't necessarily the guy who was going to be third. When I first got there, but I was, pretty much promised a chance to be that guy, by Ray Rhodes. So that's the reason why I took it. And there were guys around, on that team that were, all pro guys. So for me coming in, it was really easy for me to just sit back and say, you know what, I know I can play this game. Learning the offense wasn't a problem for me because it was the same offense that I had been in my entire career. So that wasn't going to be a learning curve for me at all. I was just comfortable when I got to training camp, and basically cruise through training camp, just saying to myself, just go out and play every day, get better every day, like everybody else would normally do. I will say this. That was probably one of the hottest training camps that I've ever been in my entire life. Being there in where Philadelphia had that training camp at that time.
Wow.
I think it was 99 degrees pretty much every day, man. That was really one of the hottest training camps I had ever been in my entire life. That's something that I won't forget either.
Well, and we didn't ask Fred this, but did you ever guys make like have fun or come up with some names like for the big three, for example, basketball they have big threes. So for you, do you guys come up with any funny names between you, Fred, and Calvin?
Nah, we didn't, man. Because the thing was, it didn't actually surface for a few weeks into the season where it became us three. Kelvin Martin was actually part of the team who you would probably know from the Cowboys days.
Yep.
He was there and he actually started out as the third guy. But he broke his foot.
Yep.
So me stepping into that spot, it just became fun. There were times that, during the season where myself and Fred and even, Art Monk was brought in, for a quick short period of time there. Unfortunately, it was only for one game, I believe. Art was there, played in that game, and actually broke his arm and retired right after that on the one catch that he made. But there wasn't a nickname. We just had fun, man. Like, I honestly, when we went out to practice, we might have did some crazy things in practice, running around as a group of guys, but we knew we were going to be out there, to work, but we had fun. That's the one thing that was a little different for me being in Philadelphia than being everywhere else I had been. Like I said, because winning, makes a lot of things fun. So even though we started out the season really slow, and like I said, we were either 0-2 or 0-3 to start the season, but to win 10 games that season, the way we started, was a big thing for everybody in that locker room. Everybody was doing it for Ray Rhodes, because he's that guy that everybody would put the uniform on at the end of the day for, and kind of run through a wall for. He stood by you. He's a player's coach, but having the fun that year, with the guys that were there. I still speak to Fred. I still speak to Calvin. So it's fun, and it was fun for me being around those guys. For that experience that I had with them.
So far we have two former Eagles receivers on the show, Fred Barnett and Rob Carpenter. Now we have to get the third one, Calvin.
Yeah, Calvin's at Purdue, man. He's still around there. So you gotta do what you can do to get the third wing on this program.
Yeah. So you're part of the Eagles 81 club, by the way. You wore 81 with the Eagles. You're part of it, Tara Owens and Jason Avant. So what's it like to be part of the 81 club?
It's funny when people see pictures of me wearing the 81 uniform, the first thing they think of is Tara Owens.
Yeah.
So when they see it, I'm like, nah, I was a little before him. I had that number on before he got there. But coming into the NFL, that was the number that I wanted to wear. 81. Actually, it symbolizes my actual birth date, August 1st. So that's the number that I wanted to wear, and I wore that my rookie year. When I got to New York, I tried to bribe Terrence Mathis out of the 81, but he wouldn't give it up. So I was wearing 82, my years in New York. But when I got to Philadelphia, that number was open again, and of course I jumped right back into that number because that's the number that I wanted. So, being part of that 81 club in Philly is always fun, man. Like I said, because when people see pictures of me wearing it, the first thing they think of is, wait, Terrell Owens, and I'm like, nah, look at the name on the back. It's a little different.
Did Jason Avant and T.O., did both of them reach out to you about wearing 81, or they?
Nah. With me being there for the short period of time, Jason was there for a little while. T.O. was there for a little while, even though the turmoil that he had when he was there. But I'm kind of the lower guy on the totem pole of those two, because Jason was there for the longest haul of all of us. But again, it's pretty fun when people look up that 81 number and mention me in that group of guys.
Yeah. So now looking back at your career, obviously you had a great career, play with great teammates, great coaches, and you kept working hard. You got to your dream, and how grateful are you to be in this position right now?
I'm actually extremely grateful, man. Be honest with you. Like I said, my goal was to play, double amount of years that the NFL average was. So my initial goal was to play 6. My long-term goal was to play 10. I didn't make it. I injured my knee, so I didn't make it to the full 10. But putting in the work and be able to double that NFL average, number, it just puts it in my head. What, I put in the work to actually be here. one of the, 1,500 guys, for a season that, get to play an NFL season. So it's an extremely low percentage number of guys that actually are able to put on that uniform. And to put on that uniform more than 5 years is something that I look back on as, it was a goal of mine that I actually did. So I have no regrets whatsoever about what I did. I look back and say, I was one of the few, because there's quite a few guys that actually, that are able to put this uniform on. We look at the totality of the numbers of people that have played this game. So I'm honored. I'm always honored when I'm looked up and people know and recognize my name.
So what advice would you give to younger athletes or younger players that are trying to get to their goals and get to their dreams?
Stick with it. There's work that you actually have to put in. And it doesn't matter where you are. I say this to a lot of kids, quite a bit. You don't always have to go to the big school. If you're in elite talent, scouts will find you wherever you are. Whether it's Division III, junior college, whatever it might be. There's stories all over the NFL about guys, who didn't go to the big schools, who didn't, have the big name that, end up playing 10, 12 years in the NFL because they put the work in and they were actually good enough to play this game.
Yeah.
And, once you actually, put the work in and you continue to put the work in and someone finds you, it's just up to you to actually, continue to strive to be better, to stay at that level that you want to be at. But, my advice to them is always just continue to work. It may not work out. Honestly, it may not work out, but if you put the work in, somebody will find you.
Yeah. So what do you like about today's game now? And obviously we're heading into the playoffs soon. This weekend, tomorrow we got Cowboys Eagles. Good time. So, what do you like about today's game? And do you like the rules changes, or what do you miss about the game that you were part of?
Well, it's funny because sometimes I always say I was born a little bit too early. Because the way the rules changes are now, everyone knows that the rules changes are for more offense in the game, but at the same time for more safety in the game.
Yep.
So, back when myself and Fred and Calvin, those guys were playing, the big hits were part of the game. The big hits were something that the NFL actually pumped out there to show, to get fans, involved in the game. Nowadays, it's more safety driven, and it's something that should be there. There's certain parts of the game that we all hate, that these rules actually make guys actually go out there and play a certain way. And I'll give you a prime example of that is Chris Godwin from Tampa.
Yep.
If the rules changes weren't around, Chris Godwin probably wouldn't have a torn ACL right now.
Yeah.
He might have had a concussion, which is not always the greatest thing as well. But he might have been able to suit back up and still be playing right now at this moment. But the rules changes actually make guys do things that we had unwritten rules about back then. The unwritten rule was always never go for a guy's knees because that's his livelihood. So just those changes I don't really like too much, because these are the consequences that come about from the game. But at the same time, as these injuries occur, we've seen that guys come back quite a bit faster, and sometimes even better from injuries that ended guys' careers back in the day. So, the rules changes are there for that reason. I like to see it. I like to see the fact that they're trying to take the headshots out of the game, because in the long term, we've seen what CTE's done to certain guys, and that's an ongoing thing right now, with science trying to figure out what's the outcome of all of these hits, that football players and athletes in general take over a sustained period of time. But it's something that's good for the game, and I really can't complain too much about it at all. But again, with the rules changes and the way the offense is played nowadays, I do say sometimes, man, I was born a little too early, because the 4 wide receiver sets, throughout an entire game is something that, I was never a part of in college, even in the pros. We had 2 and 3 receiver sets back then. And even in college, I can't even remember a time where, a 3 receiver set was done, when I was in college at all, because we only ran 2 receiver sets. So that's when I say, the game has changed a lot, especially from when I was in college. It's changed a lot. Four wide receiver sets, guys can go out there and put up a lot of numbers. And these rule changes, the defensive backs can't, get a lot of pressure on guys nowadays. Anytime you see defensive back touch a guy's a foul, so it's a penalty. These guys getting 15 yards like like it's water out there sometimes. But it's fun to watch. It's definitely fun to watch, and it's good for the game because it gets a lot of other fans involved in the game.
Yeah, so speaking of Tampa, obviously they've been in the news recently with Antonio Brown incident, and obviously T.O. wants to come back. Apparently, he wants to go try with the Buccaneers. So, what are your thoughts on this whole situation, and especially with Antonio Brown, your fellow receiver? And in my opinion, I think he's done. He's given so many chances, and he's letting it go. But for you as a fellow receiver, what advice would you give one-on-one to Antonio Brown right now?
There would be no advice anybody could give to Antonio Brown right now, like none. It's unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for Tampa. It's unfortunate for the league because he's a Hall of Fame talent. Everybody knows that. When he's on the field, he's one of the greatest wide receivers to play the game. When he's off the field, that's a whole different story, and it's a very unfortunate thing. This is not the first time he's done it, and if you're shocked, that that's just shame on you because he's burned the bridges everywhere he's gone. When you put things out about Mike Tomlin in the locker room, and you put that out on social media, as great of a coach and as great of a person as Tomlin is, you put it out there like he's a bad guy. That's something that probably shouldn't have been tolerated by many other clubs. But when you actually have that talent, other teams will tolerate it. And he basically just burned every bridge that he crossed, wherever he went, whether it was the Raiders, he had the incident with New England, and New England just, that's Belichick. Belichick is like, nah, we're not going to have this around here. So, he cut those ties really quick. And he was given the third or fourth chance, whatever it was in Tampa. And you see what he did, with the fake vaccination card, and then trying to put the blame on other people, with that. And then this unfortunate situation that he got into, this week. It was weird because I was actually at the game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in the stadium, and I was about to actually leave, and do what I normally would do because I only live less than 15 minutes away from the stadium. So I normally leave just before the fourth quarter to come home and watch the rest of the game, at home.
Right.
And I heard the PA announcer say Antonio Brown is taking his shoulder pads off. So I walked back out to look, and I looked down in the field, and there he was. He just was tossing his gloves and his shirt into the stands and running off the field. And I was like, did I just see what I really just saw? Like, what's really going on? And then to find out, a few days later, everything that actually went on. I had heard a little grumblings about something might happen in the locker room, but basically all the information has come out over the last 2 days of what really went on. But again, it's unfortunate. I don't think he'll ever get a chance again. Any GM trying to go to an owner of a team saying they want to bring in Antonio Brown right now would probably get fired on the spot. So it's just unfortunate for him, man, because he's super talented too, man. He's like one of the best that ever played the game.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I'm hoping he praying for the family, hoping he gets help too. I think he needs help, and I'm praying for the family. But do you still get recognized when you go to the games?
I do. I go into the stadium at times. I do certain appearances with the Jets here, at times. But I'm known on Twitter, so around this area, I'm recognized when I actually walk around.
I see your tweets.
I'm pretty active on Twitter at times, man. But I'm recognized when I go over to MetLife at times.
Yeah. So a couple more things here before I let you go. And which receiver do you like to watch now? And which receiver reminds you of yourself a little bit?
I watch quite a few guys, man. And the way the game has changed, it's not really just one guy that I like to watch. When I was at Syracuse, I put myself in the category of Devontae Adams when I was at Syracuse.
Yeah.
I'm not a short guy. I'm 6'3". So back then, the defensive backs actually could grab and could hold and could hit you while you were down the field. So my biggest thing when I actually was coming into college was the fact I'm such a tall receiver was to make sure that I got, you know, separation from a defensive back right from the line of scrimmage. So I worked hard on my releases, you know, in the offseason. You know, that was the one thing that you know, I pretty much tried to hone my craft in on, was basically being able to get off the line of scrimmage. The work that I was putting in up at Syracuse, and you know, working so hard at getting those releases, and watching him play reminds me of myself when I was at the Cuse. But the way the game's played now, there's so many guys out there on the field, man. You just and each guy is different. You know, like I said, Devontae's probably the purest release guy that's in the league right now. You know, his hands are exquisite. You know, you hardly ever see this guy drop a pass. If you do, pretty much in shock. It's the same way with D Hop. You know, if you see him drop a pass, it's almost like, what? Did I just see that? And he has a unique way of running routes. You know, he's not the fastest guy, but for whatever reason, he doesn't get caught. You know, he's not the biggest guy, but he's strong at the point of the catch. And then, you know, you have guys like Keenan Allen. I like watching Keenan Allen with his releases as well, and getting up the field. He's a little bigger than those guys, but you know, his releases are awesome when he gets off the line of scrimmage. There's probably not a DB in the league that can touch him, you know, at the line of scrimmage. So watching those guys like that, I just like to watch it because I like to watch those guys work from the time the ball is snapped to the point of the catch. And most of those guys can run after the catch as well. So you know, those guys aren't easy to bring down once they get the ball in their hands.
Yeah, I actually had Austin Eckler on the show last year, and he described Keenan Allen fearless.
Yeah, that's basically what he is. You know, he talks his trash, and he pretty much can back it up anytime he's out there on the field. So you like to see that in guys, guys that put in work and they know they can talk and back up everything that they do out on the field.
Yep. So before we get to the last two things, what are you most looking forward to tomorrow's matchup? I'm surprised they switched it to a Saturday night game, but I
as well.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on that matchup? And obviously, both teams are in the playoffs, and congrats to your guys making the playoffs. And no one thought the Eagles would make it, but you guys kept working hard. Jalen Hurts, man, this guy's a young cat. He's still growing, but he's a good quarterback.
It's kind of unfortunate the way some Philly fans actually were treating Jalen, and even some media, you know, throughout the season. You know, I looked at it as him basically being a rookie. It's basically his first full year as being a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. And for them to make the playoffs with him being basically a first-year quarterback, you know, that's an extraordinary thing. You don't see that happen for a guy to come in, step into a team that was basically in turmoil, and take them to the playoffs the way that he did, especially the way the season started, and Sirianni not being, you know, in tune with what they really should have been doing. I said early on in the season, man, that they should be running the ball. And I have no idea why. And pretty much everybody was, you know, in lockstep with that. They don't know why the Eagles aren't running the ball. They have some of the best backs in the game. Then you have Jalen Hurts, who actually can enhance the running game. And when he finally took that step, I honestly don't remember what game it was. I believe they only ran the ball 2 times in the first half, I believe. Wow. Maybe 3 times in the second half, and they ended up losing. And I believe it was after that where he finally got it through his head, where, all right, we need to run the ball. And then, you know, all of a sudden they become one of the best rushing teams in the league. And they, you know, string together a bunch of wins, and now they're in the playoffs. The game tomorrow, I'm not really looking for a whole lot in the game tomorrow, I'll be honest with you, because both teams are already in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And like you just said, I don't really know why they flexed that game to Saturday evening or Saturday night, you know, as the primetime game, because I don't think a lot of guys are going to be playing in the game. I don't anticipate, you know, many of the Cowboys to be playing in the game because they already locked up the division title. And I don't think they can go up any further than where they are at the moment. The Eagles don't have anything to gain because they're already in, you know, playing the guys, unless you just want to kind of, you know, get the guys out there for a couple of series and then to stay a little fresh. I can't see, you know, a lot coming out about this game. Whichever team wins, it really doesn't, you know, enhance or you know, do anything for them. So, you know, I just look for a lot of the younger guys and guys who hadn't played a lot to probably play in this game and, get a little experience just in case they need it, in case a couple guys go down during the playoffs. So that's probably going to be the best thing to come out about this game.
Yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. Obviously, I'm a Cowboy fan, so I'm hoping you guys lose. It's gonna be a good matchup. But I see you have the Knicks game in the background. I like it. Let's go.
Listen, man. I'm a Knicks fan. We've been having
Let's go.
a decade worth of non-existence basically. But from last season, they're making the playoffs and not going too far in the playoffs, getting knocked out in the first round from Atlanta, but having all the optimism for this season coming in. And then last night's game, the way that game ended, them coming back from 25 down in the second quarter to, hit that buzzer beater late in the game, man. If around here in the New York area, man, the buzz for the Knicks right now is crazy.
Yeah.
And if they can string together a few more wins here, for the rest of this month and going into, the break, the All-Star break, if they're in prime time, playoff contention right then and there, man, the buzz is going to be even crazy around here, man. So the Knicks are basically the hottest ticket right now in New York.
Yep. And the last two things here, our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. He's now the head coach for Grambling State. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe, the kids stay safe. So I'll send you the foundation so you can go check it out.
Yep. Thank you. I'll do that.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the essential workers right now?
I have a lot of nurse and doctor friends out there, man. If it wasn't for them right now, with everything that's going on with this pandemic, man, we wouldn't be as quote unquote safe as we are. You got to give tons of shout outs to those guys because they're the frontline workers, man. They put their life on the line every single day, every hour of the day, trying to make sure that this thing gets, stemmed down and, put their families in jeopardy. It's unfortunate for them that, the way this has turned out. Certain political things have happened to, not help them out, as much as they can and put them in harm's way as much as they have. But, for those workers, man, they're fearless. It's what they signed up for. They go in every day, do their job to the best of their ability, man. And they're helping out this country and the rest of the world pretty, as much as they can, man. Can't thank them enough, honestly. And to my family members that are nurses and doctors, I say it all the time, man. We can't thank them enough because of what they're doing. We know how strenuous it is, how stressful it is, with them being overwhelmed as much as they are right now. So, big ups and as many thanks as you can give to them, man. Anytime you see a nurse or a doctor, man, you actually have to, say thanks to them at all times.
Yeah, well said over there. And there it is. That wraps up episode 961 with former Notre Dame Syracuse NFL wide receiver Rob Carpenter. Man, what a great story. It was an honor having you on the show today. Learned a lot. And go follow him on social media. He's big on Twitter. So go follow his tweets. And this guy's from the New Jersey area. So, man, keep up the great work. We would love to have you back on the show down the line so you can meet the full team. But Rob, truly an honor. Thank you again. And you and your family stay safe.
And thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on. Anytime you need me on, man, I'll come back.
Yeah, no problem. And let's go. Let's go Knicks.
Hey, there you go.